maybe could you guys go grab a couple more chairs? Pastor Vic will tell you where to go. Pastor Vic, Jeff and Brian right there can go help grab some. All right, we're getting a few more chairs. Normally we are in the chapel, but they accidentally scheduled something tonight. So it's actually the LDS Church is holding a choir practice for the Lamb of God. So that's what's going on over there, which is where we normally are. So normally we have tons of space for everyone in the county. All right. Well, we are going to go ahead and get started, and we're going to have an opening prayer by Lamar.
Our Father in heaven, we are grateful to be able to come together and discuss these important topics. We're grateful for this land of freedom. We're grateful for the liberties that we enjoy. We pray the Spirit will be with us and help us understand the messages. That we pray that we'll be uplifted and hopeful. And we're grateful for all those who put this event together. Please bless them for their efforts. And we pray we'll have an enjoyable evening. Have a safe trip home afterwards. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Lamar. My name is Tina Horlacher. For those who don't know me, I am the chair of the Davis County Conservatives. This group is the Davis County Conservatives. Raise your hand if this is your first time coming to one of our community forums. Awesome. Well, we are happy to have you. Raise your hand if you're not from Davis County. Okay. All right. I am going to pass this around. If you have not signed this before, please make sure you put your name on it, your email, and your phone number. And the reason why we would like your phone numbers is because we're going to send out text reminders so that we can help people remember to come.
So only put your cell number?
If you're currently getting emails, then don't put your email. Just put your cell number. Does that make sense to everybody? Mm-hmm. We want to inform you. So we are about, I don't know how old we are, 3-4 years old. We've been hosting community forums for quite a few years. We hold them on the second and fourth Thursdays at 6:30 p.m. at this church. Thank you to Pastor Bickle, who we'll be hearing from. But yeah. We love being able to not be inhibited by the libraries that kick us out at 8:15 and make it hard for us to do some other things that we like to do. So tonight, you didn't all come to hear me, but I'm just going to say a little bit as people are still getting seated. First of all, there are a couple of books back there. One of the books is 100% or Success Without College or something like that. It's a book written by my friend. It helps your youth who are coming out of high school if they are thinking they don't want to go to college. This is the book for them. It gives them all kinds of ideas of jobs and protects them from the atheist-driven college campus stuff that's going on. I'm not going to go on about that. There's also the 5,000-Year Leap. If you've not read the 5,000-Year Leap, this is a book everybody should have in their home. And there's a few hats, and you can see how you can get those back there. The other thing I wanted to make you aware of is on Saturday, March 15th, the Davis County Republican Party is having their Lincoln Day dinner. That's going to be at the Davis Conference Center. The reason why I'm announcing this, we support the Republican Party in Davis County, but the elected officials are annoyed with the county party because the county party didn't give money to some of the signature gathering candidates that are incumbents. So what they're doing in response to that is they're not donating to the party. And the elected officials are, they usually do donate to the party, and that kind of helps them, but I don't believe that's the way it should be. I believe the grassroots is who should be donating to the party because it makes us independent of them. And ultimately, if you are a Republican, we need to donate to the party because we need to run our own elections. Then we don't have the state controlling the primary, and we don't have to put the signature gathering candidates on our ballot. So ultimately, this is what needs to happen. On April 12th, raise your hand if you're a county delegate. Okay, Davis County, I'd like to see that. So April 12th is the organizing convention for Davis County. This is a really important convention for you to come to. We elect new party leadership, we elect a new state central committee, your executive committee. So this is who runs caucus, this is who runs convention, and it's who runs the state, the governing body of the state for the Republican Party. We can find solutions to SB 54 within the party if we have the right people running the party. So it is very important that you go to this convention and that you find the right people to elect. And if anybody is interested in running for a position, talk to myself or Dawn, or there's a few other people that you could talk to here that can help you know how to get involved. All right, so one more thing, back to the Lincoln Day dinner. I do have a QR code here. If you're interested in going to this event, I'm going to put it on the back table. It's $5 off if you sign up by tomorrow midnight, I believe. And remember, we want this event to be successful especially because the elected officials don't want it to be successful. So I also just want to say briefly, the legislative session is coming to a close. This is always the very dangerous part of the legislative session where bills are passed very fast. Just today, came out of rules into committee today about the Constitutional Convention. This is not something we want because if you look around, I don't see founding father kind of people anywhere. We don't want to mess with our Constitution. So that's something you could be reaching out to your legislators and say, no, SJR 13. And I could go on and talk about legislation, but I'm not going to at this moment because that's not what this is about. But I'm going to say one more thing. Oh, I need to say text. If you want to receive our text reminders, you can put it on that paper. You can also text 53445, text DCC 53445. Our community events our community forums are really important to help keep our community informed as to what is going on. That's our purpose, but we also are looking for people to run for elected office, and we assist them and help get them elected. And we have had success, and it's made a change in our county. So that's the purpose of the Davis County Conservatives. One last thing. I don't know if you're watching what's going on at the national level. It is really hard to get the truth about what is going on anywhere. That's another problem that we need to address, but not at this moment. We cannot not be active. We have got to be active in our communities. We've got to be about informing ourselves, and not just informing ourselves, take action in whatever way you feel inspired to do that. And that is going to be the last thing I say, unless there's any other quick questions. I'm going to turn the time over to Pastor Bickle, who is going to give us some thoughts as well. And then we'll turn the time over to Phil Lyman.
You did. I'm sorry. I missed that. I'm so sorry.
We should have done the Pledge of Allegiance. I was going to do that.
Well, it's an honor to have you guys here this evening. Maybe some of you think that's a conflict of interest. I don't, because we live in the United States of America. And we live in a nation that's unique in this world. We live in a nation where I am the government. The people of my church are the government. And we need good people to know what's going on. Our founding documents were made for a religious and moral people. And one of the things that really concerns me the most right now about the state of Utah is, of all the states, I don't know of a more religious state than the state of Utah. And so how is it that we've come to the place where there's so much deep corruption, where even nationally we're known as one of the top 3 most corrupt states? It doesn't seem possible, but it is. It's true. our church, what I'm doing in our church is teaching the Bible. The Bible teaches that the powers that be are ordained of God, and that those powers are there on purpose, and that those powers are there to promote good and prosecute evil. But how can you know the difference between good and evil without a standard? The standard is the Word of God.
That's right.
Amen.
And so we teach the Word of God at our church. We teach our people to be biblical citizens. We're a little late to the game, so that's my fault. I didn't understand how our own government worked here until I sat down with Trevor Lee a few years ago, not just a couple years ago. At that time, we had one delegate. I didn't know what they were, but we had one. And since then, we've taught our church how to run for delegate, and right now I think we have 30 delegates in our church. So the church here has a lot of political sway. But I don't like politics. I'm not into politics. I'm into truth. I believe that what Jesus said, he said, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." It's my opinion that there's enough patriotic people in the United States, but as well as Utah, that if you just gave them the truth, that would be enough. But how do you get to the truth? We're really having a hard time getting to the truth. It's really sad. And, I want to just share some things with you real quickly. Hopefully I can go through this pretty quickly. First of all, I'm proud to live in the state of Utah. I'm proud to be an American. And I, again, believe that there are enough patriots in this state and in this nation that if they have the truth, they'll make the right decision most of the time. Our founding document said, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." To secure these rights are to be secured, but they're not given by men. They're to be secured by men. God gave us these rights. Governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Our documents have withstood the test of time like no other nation. The average nation has a new government every 17 years. This is true over 5,800 years of recorded history. Every 17 years, most nations have. The average is a new government. Ours has stood the test of time 237 years. Our forefathers sought the mind of God in a government that could stand the test of time. And they didn't know what would work, but they knew what would not work. And this is really important. This is really important. We need to be part of the solution here. We need to quit telling everybody and letting other people tell us that we're a democracy. We're not a democracy. Our forefathers knew that a democracy would not work. John Quincy Adams said, "The experience of all former ages had shown that of all human governments, democracy was the most unstable, fluctuating, and short-lived." James Madison said, "Democracies have been found incompatible with personal security or the rights of property, and in general, been as short in their lives as they have been violent in their death." John Marshall was a founding father, a member of the Supreme Court. He said, "Between a balanced republic and a democracy, the difference is like the difference between order and chaos." Ambrose Bierce said, "Democracy is 4 wolves and a lamb voting on what to have for lunch." It sounds really good until you're part of it. And I can give you examples that have happened right here in our state that show you how ridiculous and how quickly it can go bad. John Adams said, "Democracy will soon degenerate into anarchy, such an anarchy that every man will do that which is right in his own eyes. And no man's life or property or reputation or liberty will be secure, and every one of these will soon mold itself into a system of subordination of all the moral virtues and intellectual abilities, all the powers of wealth, beauty, wit, and science, to the wanton pleasures, the capricious will, and the exorable cruelty of one or a very few." Benjamin Rush, one of the top 4 most influential founding fathers, said, "A simple democracy is the devil's own government." James Madison said, democracies have ever been spectacles of turbulence and contention." Alexander Hamilton said, "If we incline too much to democracy, we shall soon shoot into a monarchy." In our government, our Constitution tells us in Article 4, Section 4, "The United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a republican form of government, First of all, that ought to be, the Constitution's got to start meaning something to us. It's got to start meaning something to us. It's unbelievable. See, like I said, I've been patriotic my whole life. I've preached on patriotism my whole ministry, been 36 years a pastor, but it's only been the last few years that I've delved into Utah politics, and it's so eye-opening for me. This is what the Article 4, Section 4 states in the Constitution. The United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a republican form of government, and shall protect each of them against invasion and on application of the legislature or of the executive when the legislature cannot be convened against domestic violence. And Utah has set the example for many years, or had set the example, of a constitutional republican form of government using the caucus system. Every legal citizen of voting age that's registered to vote as a Democrat or a Republican is invited to their own precinct meeting. Now listen, these are literally your neighbors. If a person does not care enough in your neighborhood about their government or their future or their children or grandchildren, they don't have to attend. But they're all invited. This is not for the elites. This is every single person's invited. We need to help change some of this stuff. And what I'm talking about is people are trying to act like this is just for the elites. Everyone's invited. At the precinct meeting, delegates are voted on and chosen to represent their precincts. And there's great responsibilities that come with being a delegate. And let me tell you, having about 30 of them opened my eyes. And we have a bunch of great people in this church that took it very, very seriously and wore themselves out interviewing and learning each candidate, and they made really good decisions. Each delegate's responsible to get to know all they can about each candidate. You can't fool delegates with fancy, expensive advertising. They're looking the candidates right in the eye. And they're going to debates. And they're working hard to represent their precincts. And then finally at convention, these delegates choose the candidates that best represent their precincts. This is a republic. This meets the standards of the Constitution of the United States of America. Now, sometimes I just give my opinion, so I'm going to do that for a second. In my opinion, and I'll do that when I'm preaching, I'll say, now, that is my opinion, so if you don't like it, yours is just as good as mine. But in my opinion, the right to buy signatures is unconstitutional. There's no form of a republic in finding out who has the most money. That's the very thing our founders opposed. That's the very thing they tried to make impossible to happen. And SB 54 violates, in my opinion, the Constitution of the United States of America because it wipes out any form of Republican government. It totally disrespects every precinct, every voter that cared enough to engage in the system. Then it allows those with millions of dollars to influence voters that cannot, and these voters cannot ask the in-depth questions. They can't verify if the ads are true. They come up to me as their pastor and say, "Why did Phil Lyman drop out?" That's the week of the election. That's not how the founders wanted this. This is turned into such a corrupt thing. This is the very thing the founders warned against. If you participate in this unconstitutional practice of SB 54, which is, I wouldn't be in favor for us giving any money to anybody to gather signatures. I'm not sure why it takes money to gather signatures. You know why it takes money to gather signatures? Because they don't gather signatures. So quit calling it gather signatures. They buy signatures, and they're very expensive. If you participate in this unconstitutional practice and then you don't quite buy enough, you don't have the right to be on the ballot. You just don't. I don't know if you remember the Utah football player. I don't know what year. I don't follow him that close, but I remember this very vividly in my mind. He made a nice catch. He was ahead of the defense a long ways. He's showing off, and he throws the ball down, and he goes in the end zone. The other team picks the ball up, runs it for a touchdown. And so they didn't get the points because our guy could have held on to the ball. He could have. No, nobody thought twice about this. Common sense is you could have held on to the ball. You could have acted like a mature adult. You could have not been a show-off. You could have just scored a touchdown, handed the ball to the referee. But you decided to be a show-off. You didn't cross the line with the ball. The other team picked it up and scored a touchdown. That's what happened. Now, I don't know how we let the governor drop the ball and still get the touchdown. I don't know how you do that. Well, I don't know how you do that. I'm just struggling with this. I am. Phil Lyman received 67% of the votes at... In addition to that. And then it didn't end up on the ballot. And then they let so many shenanigans go. If you keep fighting and truth comes out and truth prevails, they'll make a movie about this one day. People will go to that movie and go, well, that's a little far-fetched. Nobody really did that. Trent Stakes received 76% of the vote and didn't end up on the ballot. That's not okay. So this is what I'm hearing now, and this is what I'm struggling with. And then I'm done. So let me get this right. I'm told by basically all my representatives and even their leaders that, yeah, that happened. We know it's wrong. It shouldn't have happened. Mm-mm. You know what? We're going to do everything we can to make sure that never happens again. And I just don't know if there's any other place. One of the ways I like to figure out what truth is if you start applying. See, all truth is God's truth, and the Bible says, buy the truth and sell it not. Once you find the truth, you never have to change your mind. Truth works everywhere. Does that truth work everywhere? Governor, somebody stole your pickup last week. I know you got enough cars, you didn't know it, but they've had it for a week, so it's now theirs. It'll be fine. Just get over it. We'll try to make some more laws we don't follow, and try to keep other people from stealing pickups in the future. No, people don't. That's not how it works. I don't know what we're supposed to do right now, but I hope you do, because you don't just sit by and violate the Constitution and act like nothing happened. Something happened, and it needs to be exposed, and God's going to use some of you to help that happen. And it may create some friction. Movement always does. But I think, again, that's why I like how Phil talks factually, talks calmly. And I want to say something, you guys. This is not public property. This is our church property. And our people have trusted me to entrust you. Haven't had a single complaint from our people about this. I've had a legislator or two ask me what I'm doing. Well, they didn't ask me, they went behind my back, what I'm doing. But the thing is I appreciate passion, but I want you to think about this. This is where our people come to worship. This is their church facility. And it's okay with me if you have passion, but don't use bad language. Don't use the Lord's name in vain, please. I'm going to ask you to leave if you do, and I don't want to have to ask people to leave. I appreciate you being here. This is how our government was founded. If you go study the founding fathers, they met at churches. I'm proud to have you here, and I'm so thankful that you're taking time out of your schedule to be here tonight. And let's welcome Phil Lyman.
Are there any more chairs?
There's a chair over here too.
Chair here. So come on up. We're way up here. Yeah.
Well,
I stand up here and look and I see my old mission companion from 40 plus years ago, Steve Kirkhofer. Good. Brings back a lot of memories from Scotland and South Africa. Anyway, it's good to see you, Steve. Good to see everybody. Thank you so much. It's just, I can't tell you how good it is to come to the Davis County Conservatives, and then the added bonus of coming to Pastor Bickle's church. I can listen to him all day long because he does tell the truth, and I so appreciate it. Thank you, Pastor. I'm grateful to be standing beneath this sign. It says refuge. We do need that. We need a refuge. We need a place that we can come and tell the truth and talk about these things. It's funny, as you're talking about some of these things leading up, first of all, the Constitutional Convention. When I first got in the legislature, I was approached and pretty, aggressively, will you support a constitutional convention? And I said, well, we should follow the one we have, right? But let's try that. Let's just try following the Constitution we have. I remember as a county commissioner, I was a county commissioner in Blanding, Utah. First of all, I should say, my name is Phil Lyman. I got halfway through a speech once and some person raised their hand and says, who are you? Phil Lyman. I was a county commissioner in San Juan County, and there was I'll talk about this a little bit, but we were in a meeting and Rob Bishop came down. He wanted to do the PLI, the Public Lands Initiative. We got to do a deal with the federal government. They own 92% of San Juan County. We have 8% private property. Well, we want to do a deal. I said, it's already federal land. Call it whatever you want. Don't pretend like this is going to matter to us. But he came and said, we need to put together this Public Lands Initiative. And I said, we're all in. Tell us which 10 square miles it is that you're looking for in San Juan County. I said, if you need to build forts, dockyards, arsenals, those types of things, that was right out of the Constitution. And anyway, Rob Bishop finished quoting the article from Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17 of the Constitution. But that's the Constitution. It says that the federal government can't own more than 10 square miles in a state. And we go along with it like, well, I guess it's different out here in the West, right? I guess somehow Utah is special. They can own all of Utah. They can treat us like a territory. When they passed the Public Lands Policy Coordinating, the FLPMA, the Federal Lands Policy Management Act, in there it says we can enter a home without a warrant. We can arrest without a warrant if we suspect that there's something going on. I read this I brought it up to my sheriff. I said, do you know that FLPMA allows law enforcement, federal law enforcement, to come into your house without a warrant? He said, I don't think that's true. Well, I pulled it out and I showed him. He said, wow, that's not good. It's like, that's right, Sheriff, you're the one. You're the one that we elect. You're the one that we voted for. There's an old Anglo-Saxon Black's Law Dictionary definition that says, any power which, if abused, might lead to the oppression of the people must be delegated by the voice of the people themselves. That's a sheriff. It is not a federal law enforcement officer. It's not a highway patrolman. It's a sheriff. And we try to get this through to our sheriffs. This last year, it was really interesting. It came out, I made some complaints about Utah's sanctuary state status. Call it whatever you want, but our policies make us a sanctuary for illegal immigration. And worse than that, our policies make us a magnet for non-citizens with criminal intent because they are not held in jail. They're not detained. 3 non-citizens who raped a young girl were given 4 years probation. And people say, well, why would that be? Because in Utah, it's illegal to keep a non-citizen in jail longer than 72 hours, unless you have an ICE facility, which we don't have. And I kind of ran on this policy, and I said, if you break a law in Utah, you can sit in the Utah jail. And if the federal government says you can't do that, you tell the federal government to pound sand, and that's where it needs to be a state. So, Pastor Bickle, a lot of what we see now is promoting evil and prosecuting good. You talked about prosecuting evil and promoting the good. We prosecute the good. Going through the federal system, you find putting bad people in jail is child's play. They like to go after innocent people. They like to put people in jail who really have committed nothing other than possibly telling the truth about what's going on. Which brings me to, I'll just tell you briefly about a little bit about my history. I don't say much about this, at least haven't for a while on the campaign trail, but on October 1st of 2013, the federal government did a government shutdown, and they shut down all of the national parks, all of the recreation. And in San Juan County, like I said, it's 8% private property. For years they've been telling us, you don't need ranching. Tourism can offset that. You don't need to do extractive industries. Tourism will offset that. You know, everything's like, you can make a living on tourism, and it's true, you can make a pretty good living on tourism. Once you've given up all of your productive industries, then the federal government rolls in and they say, you know what, we really don't like tourism either. In fact, we don't want anybody out on the land, and we're gonna shut it down. And that's what they did October 1st, and it was devastating. I called the manager at Lake Powell at Hall's Crossing, and I said, hey, you don't have to shut down. This is a private contract. Aramark has a private contract. We don't need the federal government to tell us that we can get on our own land. And then he responded, and I could tell he was crying over the phone. And he said, Phil, I just let 300 people go this morning, and they need these jobs. Their families are going to suffer. This is the result of bad policies. People suffer. They lose their homes. They lose their mortgages. They get divorced. It wreaks havoc with people. So I repented of, calling him on the carpet, and we said, well, what can we do? So as that started kind of a chain reaction going, and I made an announcement that we were going to open up the Natural Bridges National Monument. The county was going to take it. We're going to open it up. And Governor Herbert called me and said, please hold off. Please wait. Don't do this, Phil. Don't defy the feds and open up the. And he said, I've got some negotiations. So the next day I found myself on the phone with some people in Washington, D.C., and they were talking about this problem commissioner out in San Juan County that was, telling them how he's going to do things. And one of the law enforcement, federal law enforcement, got in and said, how are you going to handle the safety? And I said, well, our sheriff's department has agreed that they will go out and they'll help to manage this. It's a small little park. How many of you have been to Natural Bridges? Yeah, it's small, right? You drive around, it's a little loop, we could do it. The law enforcement guy said, we're not turning this over to a bunch of Boy Scouts, referring to our sheriffs. I walked out of the meeting, I called my scoutmaster, I said, get the Boy Scouts ready, we're going down. We're going to Natural Bridges tomorrow, and we're going to do our Friends of Scouting drive at the same time, and we show people around. This is like a match made in heaven. Anybody knows Friends of Scouting drives, but, and that hit the news, and I get another call from Gary Herbert, and he says, just give me one more day. And he did. He struck a deal. He paid the federal government $15 million to go and do their job. I'll watch my language. To go and do their job. And we never got that $15 million back. It was an absurd thing. But that led to a series of events when I realized the federal government can turn our economy on and off like a light switch. And not only do they have the ability to do it, they have the proclivity to hurt us. They don't like us. When you're dealing with somebody that hates you, you have to take that into account in everything that happens. And that was the feeling that I had. And I got it directly from Sally Jewell, who was the Secretary of Interior at the time. She wagged her finger in my face, and and I felt some jeopardy there. We decided we needed to stand up for ourselves in San Juan County. The whole county is 15,000 people. We don't matter politically, but we're there. And I had a town hall meeting, and I told the people, if we don't agree with this national monument that's coming, it's going to happen with or without us. But if we don't agree with it, we should make our voices known. Otherwise, the narrative will be that they came and talked to us, and we all agreed that was the best thing. We wanted a king. We wanted, a tyrant to rule over our county. So we did it. We had we organized a protest. May 10th, we scheduled it for 5 months later, May 10th, 2014. I called the BLM the next morning, said, this is what we're doing. Let's work together. Let's make this a good event. Nobody's planning on breaking any laws. We're not doing any of that. Sheriff's office came on the day. It was a huge success. Thousands of people that showed up. It just so happened that 2 weeks prior to that, the Bundy raids took place in Bunkerville. So the feds were really heightened, and they wanted to turn this into an insurrection, they wanted to turn it into something it wasn't. Well, we didn't give them the satisfaction. But 5 months after that took place, I get a call from the Salt Lake Tribune that said, how do you feel about being charged federally? And I said, I'll have to get back to you on that. I haven't heard that news. It was 11 days before I got notice that they were charging me with conspiracy to trespass. Has anybody ever heard of conspiracy? On your own property, and you can't bring up RS 2477, which is the law that says these roads belong to the county. I'm a county commissioner. This is our road. It's a county road. We advertise this. And I told Jody, I told my wife, I said, don't worry, this is just saber rattling. This is just silly. And the media was having a heyday with it, and I'll get into that a little bit. This kind of gaslighting and just this creating this hysteria. It's really a frightening thing. And they were going nuts. And I told Jody, just hang on. We'll get into federal court. This is dumb. Well, if you ever have been to federal court, you find the Salt Lake Tribune has nothing on federal U.S. attorneys. They just get up there, they put on the biggest show, and lie and accuse and tell stories, and it was pretty phenomenal. My attorney did tell me, he said, take no comfort in the fact that you're innocent. This is federal court and it makes no difference. I thought he was being cynical, but I found out that is exactly the case. That is exactly the case, and especially if they charge you with conspiracy. Because conspiracy is a thought. Conspiracy is, it's something that doesn't really exist. And I've told people, if you get charged with conspiracy, all that means is you're going to jail. That's what it means. So we went through that whole process, and it was long and it was tedious, and we were expecting a 2-year sentence. We spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on attorneys for a misdemeanor. This is just madness. And so we went to sentencing. I was expecting 2 years. And we'd had 4 judges recused, 4 federal judges had to recuse, and when the sentencing came, they sentenced me to 10 days. So it was a really welcome jail sentence, but still really a strange experience to go through. But as I was sitting in that courtroom, and Jody can attest, I was sitting there in this courtroom, and they spent nearly a full day talking about Facebook. And they had a special investigator from the BLM whose full-time job was to investigate Facebook and to see who was posting anything that might be a crime and then following that. And he wasn't the only one. There was 2 full-time people in Utah who investigate Facebook. And he said, and the judge said, well, how much time did you spend? And he said, well, probably, it was off and on over the last 6 months, but if you total it together, probably about 6 weeks. 6 weeks of basically trolling Phil Lyman's Facebook to see if he said something. And then he said, and he was giving him a story about how this works. If you like something on Facebook, that means you agree. That's the start of the conspiracy. If you share it, it means you really agree. So that's even higher. And this guy's from the South. He said, he gets on the chalkboard and says, so say you see this cute kitty cat. And I draw this cute kitty cat, and you like it, so you share it. That means you really like this cute kitty cat, and then your friends like it. And he's going on, and this was for a full day of court, federal court. And I'm just sitting there, like what? What? Yeah. It's like the Twilight Zone. You're just going, this can't be happening in America. But that's that mass hysteria. That's that gaslighting thing that goes on, and pretty soon you're like, yeah, you should be really careful about what Facebook posts you like. And you come out of there thinking, hey, kids, hey, maybe take down that post because this could go really bad. That is not America. That is not the way this is supposed to work. And then you have to check yourself and say, am I going to be intimidated by this? Am I going to go along with this? And that's the process of, complying. Right now in the legislature, someone asked me the other day, do you think I could get a couple of legislators that would show up on the Capitol steps to protest with me on this issue? And I said, if you get the Speaker of the House, you get all the legislators. If you don't get the Speaker of the House, you get none of the legislators. And that's what was my experience going through this. We saw that with Natalie Klein. And that censure, it was really phenomenal to me to see really good people would go along with something that was really, really bad. So I got a call a couple of nights ago from a friend of mine, and it just so happens that his dad was Dr. Red in Blanding during these raids that kind of led up to all this turmoil. His dad took his life as a result of the BLM raids in Blanding. I won't get into that, but he said, "Hey, did you know that we are related?" And I said, I'm sure we are. We're both from Blanding. He said, that wasn't a joke. He said, "Yeah, we go back through Partridge, Edward Partridge, and Edward Partridge's great aunt was Rebecca Town Nurse, who is the first one hung for the Salem witch trials." And he said, "There's a really good book, and you should read it." So I downloaded the book and I started to listen to that. And that's the story of the Salem witch trials. Is what madness? What madness takes this place of Salem? They call it the New Jerusalem. Salem was the new place, the utopia for religious expression and freedom. And they come, and it turned around and it bit them. And then you read about the charges of the witch trials and what was happening. And it's just madness. And it was short-lived. That's the beautiful thing, I guess, about the Salem witch trials. They had a beginning, a middle, and an end. And when it ended, it was like people came out of their hypnosis or something. And I feel that same thing happening to us here in Utah, with the gaslighting, with the media, with the stories that come out, and with the pressure in the legislature to conform and to go along, to lock arms. And somehow that just feels really dangerous to me. It feels really dangerous. I'm looking at Utah now and I'm saying, who has the moral high ground in Utah? Where is it? Is it the dignity index? Is it disagree better? Is that the moral high ground? It used to be that BYU was like this shining beacon to other universities. And when I was there, they said, "We want to be the Harvard of the West." I was like, "Harvard of the West? BYU? No, Harvard should want to be the BYU of the East. We don't follow. We lead. We have standards. We have truth." And religiously, have we backed away from the truth, from the high ground? Do we have a place that we look? And this gets us into the party and to politics and to some of these things that we're trying to figure out right now. It was exciting to run for governor. It was exciting and I saw an opportunity. And it wasn't an opportunity to become the governor. It was an opportunity to expose the deep corruption that was going on here, because it like ripened. It's like hanging, just about to fall off the tree, and it's like, somebody's got to see this, how bad this is in Utah. I've been fighting it since the 2020 election, right, David? We've been fighting since the 2020 election. Dave was one of the statisticians that dug into that. And we knew there were problems, so we were saying, we need to fix it, we need to fix it. Everything that we brought up was met not with, yeah, let's look into this. It was brought up with, it was met with billboards up and down I-15 where the gold standard, op-eds in the paper saying anyone who denies the election is playing a dangerous game. They're lying to you. They're spreading misinformation. All of these things that as an analytical person, you say, well, that's almost like an admission that you're doing something wrong. Instead of opening up the cast vote records, opening up things and saying, let's do more statistical analysis. Show me more of what you're finding. And it was the opposite of that. It was being shut down in a really aggressive way by an administration who clearly does not value transparency. It's all about obfuscation, covering up, concealing, accusing, condemning, and anyway, that's not what this is. That's not who we are. So coming back a little bit to Utah. Utah is an interesting state, really a special state, founded for religious freedoms, the people that came out here. And if any of you I'm sure there's people in here that know a heck of a lot more about this than I do, but if we talk about the the ethos, the pathos, and the logos. That's the Greek persuasion. The logos is the truth. The logos that's the truth. It's manifest. It's wisdom, manifest. It's real. It's reality. And the ethos is the reputation of the person. So you take Brigham Young, a guy who comes here and says, "This is the place," and everyone's like, "This is the place. This is the place, and it's going to blossom like a rose, and we're going to irrigate, and we're going to do all this." That's the ethos. That's the personality. That's the authority that drives these things. And then the pathos is the emotion that comes behind it, the faith. It's like, wow, that was a really rousing speech, and we're here, and I think God wants us to be here, and so we're going to do exactly. And all of a sudden, we see miracles happen. We see Utah turn into this beautiful place, irrigated, and all those things. And that's what people are looking for. They're looking for the truth. This was interesting because I was going through this morning, just kind of researching a little bit of this on Grok, on AI, and I said, tell me what John 1:14, what that means. The Word was made flesh and dwelt among us, full of grace and truth. And I thought, that's the Word, grace and truth. That's pretty powerful. And it said the word there, it was the word logos. And in Greek, it was a very important word. And it meant a lot more than a spoken word. It meant truth, revealed, wisdom, manifest. And it was God. It's the chapter starts out, in the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. It's powerful. And it was made flesh and dwelt among us, full of grace and truth. So you have this manifestation, and then the full of grace and truth. I've always thought you can't be full of grace and not be full of truth, nor can you be full of truth and not have ultimate grace, because those two are compatible things. But the idea that we have, this logos, the truth. That we have the reputation, the personality, and I'm getting to the GOP. I want to talk a little bit about that. The GOP or whatever party, whatever leader we have, we definitely see it in our churches. In this church, I definitely see it. I see that ethos very much in Pastor Bickle. He's a person that whatever he's saying, I'm pretty interested, because I can tell it's coming from a really central authenticity that I love. But here in Utah, with the GOP, we've seen it jerked out from under us. There was, in this last election, there was something I really loved, and it was a commissioner, Bill Lee in Utah County, who was actually running for the House, and he stood up and he said, "I'm a Phil Lyman Republican, not a Cox Republican." And while I'm kind of like, oh wow, that's seems funny that they would use my name to define that, but I thought, it does define it. Yes. They're very different. It's kind of like, Romney Republican versus a Trump Republican or a Mike Lee Republican. It's like those things. I hope I'm not using bad language here. I don't mean to be demeaning to an individual, but there's definitely two sides of this party, two extreme sides of this party, and we're going to find out. And it gets right down to the central fight. This is the central fight. And when we're talking about delegates versus signatures, when we're talking about the party coming together and listening to the speeches, listening to the debates, and selecting their candidates, the Republican form of government versus the democracy form of government, we're talking about something really, really central to who we are, just as Pastor Bickle said. The next fight, and I tell people this all the time, number one, this is not my fight, this is the fight. It is the fight of truth. We've been fighting it for a very long time, and the day that we stop fighting it, that's going to be a very, very sad day. So this is the fight, and I've told people I'll take it wherever, I'll follow that fight wherever it takes me. It took me into the county commission after the raids in Blanding. But this is not going to stand. I'm not going to put up with this. I've always lived by this motto that honest people have rights too. And the only hope they have is that when they get pressed, is that other honest people will step up. So I watched that happen. And I can take a lot. If someone wants to abuse me, it really honestly does not bother me that much. But when they abuse my neighbors, when they abuse people, especially that can't really stand up for themselves, at some point you say, I'm not going to put up with this, and I'm going to do something. So that took us to the county commission. When I say us, I mean Jody and I, and dragging our kids along with the county commission, the state legislature, House of Representatives. To my knowledge, I'm the only state representative ever elected who had a parole officer. So I had a parole. I couldn't leave the state without calling my parole officer, even though I was a state legislator. But then that led us to the governor's race, and the governor's race was very, very satisfying. Made lots of friends, met people who care about liberty, met so many good people, and you find out, yeah, there are a lot of really good people in the state. The majority of the people, and we won. We won convention. 67.54. and then as soon as the signatures were submitted, we said we want to see the signatures. Up until we asked for Governor Cox's, you could see the signatures. You want to see the state school board race? Oh, come on in. We'll pull it out. You can go through that. Oh, you want to see the Senate race? Come on in. You can take a look at that. You want to see the governors? Oh, no. That you cannot do. So we made the accusation early on. He doesn't have his signatures. It's kind of audacious, but it's really easy to disprove. So just prove me wrong. I'll eat my words. Just prove me wrong. It's not hard. And did we get that? No. We went to the State Records Committee. No, you can't have the signatures. You can't look at those packets. We went to court. No, you can't have those. We appealed that decision. We got dismissed out of court, and we're still fighting the signature thing. I mean, we'll spend I don't know, $60,000 to say we should be able to look at the signatures, when we shouldn't have to do that. We shouldn't have to spend that money, and we're not going to likely ever see the signatures. And if we did now, I don't know what we would see, because they were all turned back to the Lieutenant Governor's office. So now we're like, we can keep suing, we can keep spending money on this, or we can just accept that no one can see the governor's signatures. What it did do, and especially when we pulled in Derek Brown and John Curtis, not in any mean-spirited way at all, just that they're also statewide candidates, using different signature companies, and we said, we'd like to see the signatures of those three people, and Representative Curtis and Derek Brown both said, we want ours audited. We want, and what could Cox do at that point? I was like, I want mine audited too, I guess. So they did an audit, really just to shove it in my face. Here you go, Phil. If you think, all right, we're going to spend all this money, we're going to do this audit, we're going to shut you up. So they did the audit. First, the state auditor did an audit. And he came back, and his audit said he didn't get enough signatures. But he was close. He would have. Because he was, not worth talking about.
He had more time.
And Michael Clare's not here by any chance, is he?
He's outside.
Is he? Oh, good. So, I mean, God sent Michael Clare. If he wants the microphone, you let me know. And some of you have seen the videos that Michael Clare has done. I think we're up to 12 or 13 of those videos now. Awesome videos. And they're not, he doesn't work for our campaign. He wasn't part of our campaign. I don't even know if he voted for me, but he likes the truth. He likes to know that things are that people are accountable. So he goes through and he does his analysis. At the same time, the legislative auditors come and they do their audit. Now, I'm a CPA. I know what a legislative audit is. I know what internal audit is versus an external, versus forensic, versus all these things. When the internal auditors came and did their audit, and they came back and they said, he doesn't have his signatures. But then they said, but he may have if we'd have counted these 592. It's like, well, can we look at the 592? They don't exist. There is no 592 signatures. There's no backup to anything. And the legislative auditors are some of my best friends. I'm I'm not critical of them. I'm just saying they did the best they could with what they had, and their report told us very clearly that Spencer Cox didn't have the signatures. That was a long way to get to win number 2, which is the signatures. Win number 3, and I'll see if there's an appetite for this. Win number 3 was the primary election. Well, yeah, I'll show some of these here in a minute. Win number 3 was the primary election. I did a video on this. I think I posted it yesterday. Some of you may have seen it. Statistically, Governor Cox did not win the primary election. And I said at the night of the primary, I said I think there's 40,000 votes that were fraudulently put into the system. I don't know exactly how. I know how it can be done. I just don't know how it was done in this situation. Yeah, I don't want to distract with visuals, but if I can get this. Okay.
Phil,
Yeah.
you left out one point, and that was Spencer himself saying if you get over 60%, there is no primary.
That's right.
Yep.
You go straight to the, what do you say? You go straight to the general.
Yep, general.
Period.
Yep.
End of story.
Yep.
His words.
He knew that.
It's still pinned at the top of my Facebook page.
It's a good video to have pinned.
With this. Okay, this is not going to be very useful. This is just my mind at work here. And I'll show some other graphs here in a minute. But so the night of the primary, 26 minutes into the primary, the AP, Associated Press, funded by USAID, we found out, heavily funded by USAID, called the election. The election's over. Spencer Cox won. The media comes up to me and said, "Well, you concede. Well, you concede." I said, "We just barely had the tip off of the basketball game. I'm going to wait till at least halftime. You know, give me a break." And I had said, "I will verify the results of the election. Win or lose, I'm going to verify the results of the election." And so the night we're on a little bit. These are the timestamps. I don't know if I need to do something now.
She's mirrored.
And if this doesn't work, honestly, you're probably not missing much. So I'll just, if you can see. So the night wears on. By 9 o'clock, we've got about 65% of the vote in. And Spencer hits 50,000 votes ahead. Over here. Okay, yeah, 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock. He's at 50,400 lead. That's 59%, roughly 60% of the votes have been cast. And then I didn't really track this. I have it by minute by minute, the whole thing. But then by the end of the election, he's down to 37,000 votes and a 54%. Okay, that was so 63% of the votes in. So they're at the bottom. So I asked Grok, and I said, "What's the likelihood that a person could be 60% to 40% with 63% of the vote counted and then end up at 54% after 100% in?" He said, "Statistically, almost impossible. That's not going to happen unless there was something really dramatic, like a bunch of people that came in and leaned towards me and they waited till the last minute." And that could happen, but I'm going to see if I can find this other. I apologize. I don't have the internet here either, so I'm not going to really, bear with me for just a second. I think these graphs are kind of interesting. I have a hard time thinking on my feet. In my office, I have really big monitors. Okay, I am going to find this graph now because I've wasted enough of your time looking for it. I have to locate it. Okay, I think that's actually the senator's graph, but mine looks very much like it. This is the ratio. So this says, what's the ratio that Cox is getting to Phil Lyman? Start out above 200, he's getting twice as many votes. And then by the middle of the evening, it's down to 130% higher than mine. Well, what you'd expect is to see that line come down and slowly even out. It's like, if I'm gonna beat this guy by 30%, then by somewhere in there, I'm gonna see that happens. Now, if you throw a bunch of votes in at the beginning of that, then you see that line continue to decrease because the first votes were artificial. It's padded, and there's nothing to sustain that, so the vote continues to drop. If I went and looked at Mike Kennedy's, his graph would look exactly the opposite of that. Well, pretty much the opposite of that. He continued to gain popularity, but if you look at Tina Cannon's against Ricky Hatch, it's wild at the beginning and then evens out right at 132. And it goes all the way the rest of the election at 132, flat line across, which is what you'd expect because that was the margin of victory. So I said, looking at this, I said, I think there's 40,000 fake votes. After the general election, then you can go back with the information. You can tell I'm talking numbers here. After the general election, you can go back in and you can analyze, well, what happened in the general election? And how does that compare with the primary election? And Utah County, going with where I'm just where I'm on the ballot to where I'm just a write-in, and more people voted for me as a write-in than did in the general. And then you go back to the statistical analysis of Utah County, where that they actually did a statistical analysis, and the results said, from the statisticians that I was working with, said we estimate that there's 46,000 votes there that either they were flipped or they were padded. We don't know. We don't know how those get in there. We just know statistically this doesn't work. And if you pulled out those votes, then I believe we won the primary.
Let me announce something, Joey.
And so we get into this thing of, could we see the cast vote record? The cast vote record, speaking in CPA lingo, is kind of like the general ledger. It's the detailed general ledger. I can look at my financial statement, I can see, there's a problem with 2004. And I can go and I look at the totals by month and say, it looks like April is way off. Then I can pull up the detailed general ledger and see all the transactions that make that up in April. Well, that's the cast vote record. And when you do that, you say, well, I want to see it by time frame. And if you see something weird on a time frame for a specific county, you can go and say, well, where did that happen? You can see what precinct it happened in. Then you can go to other counties and say, at that specific time, when this weird thing happened in this precinct, did something weird happen in another precinct similarly? That's the cast vote record. That's what we have to be able to look at. We also have a lawsuit going on that to get the cast vote record.
Which the party should join.
Which the party should be all over that.
Yes.
And this was the question I asked early on, am I the only one that cares about signatures? Just because I'm the candidate, does that mean that I'm the only one that has a dog in this fight? Does the party
No, the
have?
party should care.
Thank you. The party should care. Yes, the party does. There are certain people in the party that do care. Okay, well that was kind of a bust on the numbers. What's that?
That's our new slogan, the party that cares.
Bring better, we demand better.
Well, I'm gonna maybe kind of come to a little bit of a conclusion on this, and let me just pull up one other. Actually, I think I can turn this off. Should I just unplug? Thank you.
The party that cares is the party that shoots.
Hey, there we go.
And when you share.
Trademark.
I draw my team.
Sharing is caring. You run with it.
Okay. I guess just to kind of wrap this up, and I haven't done a really good job of doing this, and this is something I feel an obligation to do. It comes back to the logos. If you look at Jesus Christ, he did a really good job of explaining, but he wasn't explaining stuff to the Pharisees. He knew that they hated him. Who was he explaining stuff to? He was explaining stuff to the people that were believers or that maybe would be believers. He did it with parables, and he did it with a lot of intention. And I felt a huge burden to be able to come and talk about these things in a way that people could understand it. You know, in the legislature, when the thing with Natalie Klein came up, I said, look, the parents of ours said they're going to sue her. She's up for election. She's going to be reelected. She's already been destroyed, you know, in the media. This is a really good opportunity for the legislature to stay out of it, to stay in our lane. And I gave a really good speech. And I was the only one that voted that way. And you come away feeling like, could I do better? Could I explain this so that people understand it? I'm sure Pastor Bickle, when he's preaching the Word of God to people, it's pretty important that he does that in a way that they can actually comprehend it. Because if they do, it'll change their life, right? And that's the feeling I have about politics as well. And I feel like that for lack of a better word right now, ethos. I feel like that ethos is kind of absent in Utah. And people are looking for it, and where are they going to find it? Yeah. I hope they can find it in the GOP. The fight is taking us to the GOP right now. I don't want to be the chair of the GOP, but it feels like that has to happen if you're sincere about fighting. So yeah, we are running for the state chair. When I say we, it's Jody. And if you haven't met Jody, please get a chance to meet her. I tell people that's my secret weapon. And I met her in the 8th grade, and I've been trying to impress her ever since. And the one thing I found out early on is she's not impressed by cowards. And that's a big thing to live up to. When we were coming across the state, we were over in St. George, and there was a meeting in Escalante, and we were coming home that night, and I said, you know, it's... There's something caught in there, I'm telling you. I said, you know, it's going to add a couple hours to our trip. We're going to get home at about 1. I said, this will get us home probably around 2 or 2:30. But there's a meeting in Escalante. It's with the Bureau of Land Management. They're talking about shutting down all these ranchers. I don't know. Should we go? She says, yeah. Of course. We have to go. So we went over and we went and we talked to the ranchers. We talked to the BLM. We were there. We were present. We were concerned. It's my district when I was a legislator. And as we left the building, we walked down and she said, Phil, you got to help these people. You've got to do something. You've got to help these people. And that's Jody for you. So thank you, Jody. She's a very strong person, and she loves the truth. She loves her grandkids. She loves her family. She loves everything that Utah stands for. So thank you for that. And with that, if there's... Thank you.
Phil.
First of all,
Tina.
Michael, no, okay.
I'll call him.
Okay, it's all right, I just didn't.
He's on his way.
Okay, yes. And I don't know if you wanted to say something or not, but I love Michael Claris. He's great. So so I'll close really quickly, and then we'll do some questions. But I just want to say thank you so much. The friends that we've made on this governor's campaign have been phenomenal. I come away so happy. And I tell you right now, with the Trump administration, I forgot to tell you, I got a pardon from Donald Trump after that. I was back in Washington, D.C. just at CPAC this last week, and I was at a gathering with some people, and I was kind of feeling awkward. But there was a group of guys that I thought, I wonder if they're J6ers. And I heard them talking. I went up and I said, "Are you guys J6ers?" And they were humble and been in jail for 4 years. And I said, I got a pardon from Trump. I got mine before you got yours. And I got a mugshot before they were cool too. It turned into a really great conversation. These patriots, people who love this country so much, and they're not bitter. They're just ready to fight for the truth. And that's where I'm at. That's where I know you're at. I love it. I feel it here. So thank you very much. Okay, right back here.
Okay, I think last week you said on your post that you have some stuff coming out about Spencer Cox in the next week or so. Is that something you can share, or is this what you were talking about, or?
I saw somebody else that posted something like that. We didn't. I think there's
Well, maybe you just retweeted it.
probably, yeah.
So you don't have any dirt on him yet?
We have so much, and we keep rolling it out. This is not a release the Kraken moment. It's like, no, we keep releasing it. It's just nobody pays attention. But
She wants to do the dirt.
More dirt, please.
yeah. and it's important. It's important to put out stuff that is, when a person says one thing and does another, and they are the chief executive of the state. That's important. That comes back to that ethos. We don't want to have somebody making decisions for us who doesn't tell the truth and who isn't authentic about that. So a lot of stuff has come out. I think a lot more is going to come out. Yeah, there's things. I guess there's other things that are percolating here that I think might come to the scene. But what I've seen, and again, I don't want to be like personal. This really is not personal. It's about Utah, but we have seen just a pattern of obfuscation, of condemnation, of deception, of attacking the very best people and propping up the very worst, and it's got to stop. That is not Utah. That's got to stop. So, yeah, Dave.
Phil, your handicap is that you use truth and logic against lies and half-truths. That's what you're up against.
We said that the disadvantage is we're up against people who will lie
Right.
and use half-truths, and I think the biggest thing is they have the media bolstering up the entire.
That's the problem.
You've got a kind of a circular problem in Utah. We have a lieutenant governor who oversees her own election instead of a secretary of state. Simple to fix that. You've got a state records committee who won't let you see any records. It's really simple to fix that. It's like get some transparency. You've got a legislature who backs up all of those things so they won't pass bills and stand up to them. You've got the media that's right in the middle of that, pushing them to gaslighting people to a certain point to where they accept that, well, politics is that's politics. It's just corrupt, and doesn't have to be. So.
SB 277, they're trying to get rid of the State Records Committee, and they're trying to appoint.
In the House, Senate, it just passed.
It just passed?
In the
Like,
Senate.
in the Senate. So now what?
No, now the House.
Okay,
So my
everybody needs
question
to.
on that is, so I've been looking in the code. The 7 members of the committee that is being replaced, 6 of them are already appointed by the governor.
Right.
One of them is appointed by the executive director, who's appointed by the governor, and he's authorized by the governor. So his governors are already picking them.
Yeah, this is
So-
a ruse. It's a ruse of government that's happening here. We have these water bills that have been passed over the last few years. do you see Michael? Hey, Michael. We have this ruse, the water bills that are coming through are taking away farmers' waters. First of all, I don't know if you remember 3 years ago, the big thing out here was alfalfa farmers are taking all your water. Who's the problem in Utah? Farmers. They're the ones that are using all the water. If we didn't have farmers, we would live so much better, right?
We could have more.
I made the comment after the 2022 session. I said, when the people realize what the legislature's done with these water bills 10 years from now, they're going to be very, very upset. And it's just continued through 23 and through 24.
It's gonna be too late.
Centralizing control of the water. When they come and say the water in this state belongs to the state, they mean it was meant it belongs to the people. This is the people's resource. Well, we've twisted that to say, oh, I guess if it belongs to the state, then the state will be in charge of all of it. We'll put a meter on everything, and then we'll put telemeters, meaning that they'll communicate through the cell service. And then we'll put automatic shut-off valves so we can control the water. That's a scary thing in a state like Utah to have somebody that controls your water when it should be controlled at the local level.
Didn't something like that happen in Idaho, like last year?
Well, this is the same thing that they did 30 years ago in California.
Yeah.
And I lived through it. So I've seen this, they take your emergency water rights, then they create emergency with the Endangered Species Act, and then divert the water for a minnow.
It's control.
A minnow.
It's control completely.
It's complete control.
And then those who control the water in the desert control everything.
So I should note that the sponsor of SB 277 just happens to be Governor Cox's brother-in-law.
Mike
The
McKell.
same person also trying to get tickets away to right to elected attorney generals, elected auditor. You know, this is a power grab, and let's.
It's just a point of law.
Yeah.
So you mean Mike McKell's wife is a principal in Centracom? Could that be?
Never would be.
Back in the back, MAGA.
Yeah, hey, Phil, are you serious about possibly running for party chair?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so would you support a conflict of interest bylaw to remove elected officials from the SEC?
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
Yeah, they did. They did.
They did it in Davis.
Well, we did it.
I just saw Sophie here too. Hey, Sophie. I saw your dad come in earlier, but
Yeah, he's right here.
any of you who like my Twitter account, just know that Sophie's a big help on that. Let's see. Right back here. Yeah.
I'm looking around this room, and I don't see very many people under the age of 40.
Wait a minute.
Oh,
Right here.
I said very manly. Me included.
Bring your children.
That's what we gotta do, people.
Bring your children.
We can come here, we can get our gray hairs, and we can have fun. But we gotta get the kids here. When I'm talking about kids, I'm talking about those 30s and 40s. Okay, those ones who are depending on the public school systems. Okay, you probably don't recognize me. If there's any of you that recognize me, but I ran for governor against John Huntsman in 2008. And John bought the election. And then he quit 1 month later. Turned it over to Gary Herbert. Okay, and I left the country. Because I said, you know, there's gotta be a better place than Utah. And so we've traveled all over the world. COVID brought us back. What a change since 2008. Everything that I talked about at that time has happened. Okay, it's time to make a change, but we gotta be more vocal than what's right here. We gotta get to the kids. We gotta get to the kids. I don't know what your stand is on public education. When I ran against changing public education. You can go back and see my video, it's still on YouTube, Charles Chuck Smith for governor, 7 minutes, listen to what I have to say.
What do you want to name
Smith,
Oh, just Smith.
how common could that be?
You said your middle and your last together, so.
Yeah, so it's Charles Chuck, because I've always gone by Chuck.
Okay.
And Charles Chuck Smith for governor, it's on YouTube. We need to make that happen. That'll change all our problems. There is more resources available to us than we can even shake a stick at, including water. We can turn every desert into a lake, okay? We've all been brainwashed. Now you're gonna think I'm crazy. Go check it out.
I don't think this group would think you're crazy. I know what
Oh,
you're
by the
talking
way,
about.
I met your neighbor, I think it was in Missouri, and he told me you were gonna run for governor. I said, God help him.
Yeah. Hey, Michael, Clara, would you care to come and say anything to this? Just to do this?
What did you want me to speak to?
I just wanted them to see your face. I already told them I don't even know if you voted for me. That his.
No, I did, as a delegate. Oh, yeah, then I had to vote for you, yeah.
But,
What did you want me to talk about? I could talk about it, just pull my string.
If you could tell me what you found on the signatures, in a nutshell, and kind of what you're seeing as a pattern.
Okay. Okay.
Are they telling the truth?
So I got involved in this by accident, and started doing grammar requests on signature verification. And I've made some videos on it. And one of the issues, in fact, I just got a lot of grammar responses today. And so I was out of my vehicle looking at it. I got them right at 5. So the one of the things I can talk about is, how we went through he went through the signature verification, and Phil was questioning those. And I like to tell people, I'm a moderate Republican, and I disagree with Phil on a lot of things. And I've lost a lot of friends and I tell them I'm not supporting him. We got to address the corruption. And so when it comes to signature,
turns out he was right?
right, now signature verification, because I'm staying disciplined and just staying focused on that. And what happens is, he was right, he looked at statistically, and then when you start looking into it, one of the things that I was focusing in on, trying to get public records on it, were these spare signatures. And I think I just did a video on it, that nobody has the signatures, the Attorney General, or let's talk about the Davis County Clerk, doesn't have them. Tina and Jen and Nate were with me at a meeting at the State Auditor a couple weeks ago, and they explained to us what happened, because they were getting concerned about the videos and some of the accusations I was making. So they explained to us, and it actually just turned into more grammar requests that I could be more specific about. So now we have the State Auditor. So basically, let me say it this way. You started off with Natalie Clausen getting an email from Ryan Cowley, who is the state director for elections, saying there's 592 spare signatures. Then we find out in September, from the state auditors, there's only 391 that could be verified. And then the next month, the legislative auditor tells us, well, there's actually 492, but we didn't verify it. So anyways, I do grammar requests, and it's a circular thing, like he was talking about, that nobody has them. So today, I got a grammar response back. I got the cover sheets for all the packets for the spare signatures. And the number's even worse. So they're in trouble. They still don't add up, and so it's crazy. And so all I'm doing is just providing the information, making him smile, because it confirms what he's saying. But I don't have an end game. I don't know what we needed to figure out. And people do. I get calls. I send it to people. Who is it that said to mention his court case? There's a guy in the Supreme Court. Do you guys know his webpage?
Brunson Brothers.
Yeah. So she'll tell you the website, because he called me and I said, hey, I'm on my way over there, and he wants me to make a video on it. I said, I can't. I got to stick to signature verification, but they can explain to you what he has a case right now in the Utah Supreme Court that they're actually looking at. I mean, and there's a place to write letters to in support of that. And so anyways, that's where I'm at. I'm gonna keep digging on this signature verification issue because it's not sustainable. They lied. The big mystery for me is they knew they were short. They just never expected that anybody would look into it. And the one thing that I'm impressed with, I served on a school board in Salt Lake, saw all kinds of corruption, and at one point just said, I'm not wasting my time turning things into the district attorney and the AG. They're not gonna do anything. So I'm impressed with you guys. I'm impressed with Phil that he's inspired people. We're a year later from that signature issue, or concentrated signatures, and you guys are still involved in this. And for me, I'm not too surprised by the corruption, but I certainly wouldn't be investing my time in this if it weren't for people interested in it. So thank you, Phil, for inspiring me.
Crime shows where they've got the board with all the strings and the notes and all this stuff. That looks like Michael's office. He's a true investigator, and he really digs into this stuff. And it's a huge service to the state of Utah. So back here, there we go.
Me?
Yeah.
If you do become chair over the GOP and you get it cleaned up enough to where, do you think you'll ever run for governor again?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes. I was hesitant to do the chair because I don't want to be seen as an office seeker, because I'm truly not an office seeker. But it was Natalie Clausen, and she said, well, if you don't fix the GOP, then you'll be facing the same apparatus when we run again in 2028. She's not running for vice chair, the state party is a different animal, and I'm not a state GOP person. I've not been on the SEC. There's a lot of things that I don't understand about it. I don't see that as a disadvantage coming in, but I will, hope that we've got some really good leadership on the in leadership as well.
We'll skill you.
Can I give them an example of why we need a good party chair? So I'll tell you, I think I just disconnected it.
Okay, all right, so I've been on the State Central Committee for 8 years. During Rob Anderson's term, we passed something called, we've been fighting SB 54 the whole time that the legislature, it's an income protection plan, they don't want to get rid of it. We can solve it within the party. We solved it in my first term by passing what we call Bylaw 8. Bylaw 8 said that if you gather signatures, you don't get the R by your name, which means you don't get to be a Republican.
Right.
Well, what happened was they refused to send it to the LG's office. So when it ended up happening was the SEC, at least the majority of the SEC, then sent it to the Lieutenant Governor's office. They refused to acknowledge it. So the next term, under Derek Brown, who was the party chair, they formed a little secret
Cabal.
Yeah, and Olivia was not secretary, so am I getting this wrong, the time?
You are.
Okay, remind me, so it's Derek, do we do it with Derek Brown?
Yeah, it was December
Yeah.
2019.
Okay, so we did it with Derek Brown, and then when Carson Jorgensen was chair, that's when they did the little, it was all a little cabal, but that Olivia was secretary at the time, and they repealed it. So they refused to acknowledge it, but then we still repealed
Well,
it.
what you're forgetting to point out is that it specifically required one of the party officers to be the one that initiated the removal of that person from the party. And it was actually passed by the SCC when Rob Anderson was chair, right before he was done with his term. Then Derek came in, and Derek and his whole team, including Aaron, Sparks, and the whole team no one was going to put it forward. No one was going to enact that. And then when Carson and the new leadership team came in, I truly believe that it was because they knew I would enact it. I was the only one that would have. And I do believe that they put a really big fight into it because they knew that there was at least one officer who would be willing to pull the trigger and actually remove someone from the party for gathering signatures.
So-
And that's when they removed it. And they threw a huge fight about it, and it became a really, really big issue.
You know, we almost, if we would have maintained, be able to maintain bylaw 8, SB 54 would have been repealed.
Yeah.
We kept it by one vote, and I'll say that I was got called into a janitorial closet with Mike Lee and Dave Bateman, and because they were trying to make a deal with us, because they knew we had them. And we said, and they're like, let's make a deal right now, and we said, no, we've got the power. Well, Derek Brown, who's your new Attorney General, would enforce the rules of the Republican Party. If we would have kept bylaw 8, SB 54, I'm positive would have been no way.
I think it's gonna be an interesting run next time as far as people that decide they wanna gather signatures, seeing everything that's been exposed on the signatures this time. So we can weaken SB 54, and I've always said, you know, the party is in a similar situation where, you know, the legislature does not have the right to dictate to a party. We have the freedom of association under the
Neither does the
Constitution.
lieutenant governor.
Right, yeah, so, but if you're going to cave on that, then they may as well have the power. So a strong party could totally stand up to that, and I don't know what the repercussions would be. I was talking to Rob Axon before the election, and he said, well, if we don't go along with it, then we have to pay for our own primary. And I said, let's do that. And he said, well, it'll be about $6 million. Well, I went, and I was doing the math in my head, and I was actually on the phone with Mike Lee, and I was saying, said this, and Mike Lee threw out a figure of, I was thinking 500,000, he threw out a figure of 300,000. So I was like, well, let's just do that. We need a party. Even better, if we did it on the same day at the precinct level with voter ID, casting ballots. We have an apparatus to do that. It's our precincts and it's our communities. It's like it's all in place. Everything is here. One of the preachers on X, I loved what he said. He said, "This is so simple. You have to have someone help you misunderstand it." And that's where we're at in our election. It's so simple to have clean, solid elections.
What, a Republican form of government?
Yeah. A few more questions here. Did you want to say something?
Okay, I just, to take a break from politics, Phil, you need to come here, because I love Phil. So, to take a break from politics is the other side of the, not the Lyman part of the party, but the other side kept always mentioning, like, he's such a terrible guy, he's always rude, he's always terrible. I want to share a quick story, and I'm going to try and not get emotional about it, but during the campaign season, these guys were busy, and I mean these guys by the two team, the Lymans, and they were always so busy. I mean, Jody would be texting me at 1 a.m. and she'd just be getting off the campaign trail as I'd be getting home too. And I texted her one night and said, "Hey Jody, I have a really good friend who tried to commit suicide last year. They're doing a fundraiser for him, and he's a huge fan of Phil Lyman. Could Phil just do a 2-second video and just say something?" And I'm thinking, it's busy, it's campaign season, they're gonna be running him back and forth. All of a sudden, Jody responded like within a minute and goes, "I'll get him to do it right now." And I'm like, well, Jody, then they were at an event, and all of a sudden we get this video from Phil taking time to point out. And I love how you shared how the youth need to get involved. I'm 19, so I beat all of you. But the coolest thing about Phil is, as governor, as GOP chair, as who he is, just in general, is he'll get people involved, and especially the youth, because he gives us a voice. He tells us, what's your opinion? He gives us our 2 cents, and that's who Phil is, and he does that. All the time. I think you described Jody the best you ever could. Is the word that describes Jody is love, and it's gonna be weird not calling her first lady as GOP chair, but in a few years we can.
Thank you.
Phil's fight for election integrity didn't just start with this gubernatorial race. I mean, literally in 2021, Phil was begging Deidre Henderson for the voter rolls just so he could do some kind of analysis to make sure they were clean. And so this is it's like a legacy. It's not just, I want to be governor, so let's make the elections okay so that I can be. It's truly been a battle, a years-long battle, and we so appreciate it.
Thank you. There are policies that have been pushed in Utah that, well, for example, when Spencer Cox used his pronouns, I looked at that and I thought, you cannot expect to get elected in this state if you do that. You just, that's not gonna fly in Utah.
Or that June is Pride Month.
Or the June is Pride Month, or that we've got DEI, or that we joined the Biden Climate Corps, and then, I mean, it just keeps going and going and going, and I'm thinking, you can't get elected in Utah if you do those things. And I think we found out that that is actually true. You cannot get elected, but you can take an election, and that's, it's such a fight, so, yeah.
I also want to make a point that I know most of this room is here from Davis County, and if you want to get involved and do something about this, our county clerk, Brian McKenzie, was instrumental in validating these signatures. Yes, vote Brian McKenzie out.
And Brian McKenzie was hand-selected by the lieutenant governor to do the job for the lieutenant governor. That was unconstitutional. It was against all of the rules.
It'd be a secret combination right there.
Right. Which tells you that it was against the law before. They're trying to pass laws now, a lot of laws, to back up what they had done.
Wasn't there supposed to be multiple county
I'm excited to share with you a quote.
Isn't it supposed to be multiple county clerks that count signatures and not just one?
Yes.
Each county should count.
Each county should count signatures.
I just wanted to second what Sophie said, I wanted to second what you said, that Phil's been in this election integrity fight long before running for governor. My brother and I have been interested in the same thing, and we've talked with Phil about this many times, so that's absolutely true. I also wanted to state that there's something I very much respect about Phil. And that is he has the ability to state the truth without vitriol, almost without judgment, which is an amazing talent. Most of us get angry when we're talking about this stuff. And sometimes that turns people, would-be converts, people that might listen to us, it turns them off. We've got to be careful with that. But I completely respect your ability to state the truth, but you don't even sound mad, which is I think is exemplary.
It's amazing.
Anyway, and I think that's a pattern we should follow.
So I told somebody the other day. I am a Taurus, so I'm nice right up until I'm no longer nice. I do stab. Yeah. Something you said just kind of reminded me of this Darren Brunson case. And if any of you have not followed that, go and look that up, and we'll try to put some posts out about it as well. But it is phenomenal what he's put together. I don't know if it's going to get through the Supreme Court. I'm really skeptical that the Utah Supreme Court will give him the time of day on it, but he's got a sound legal argument that I think is really important. And he's trying to get people to sign letters, things like that. So we'll try to blast that out all we can.
Sophie said that Phil's fight, but in all honesty, all of the things that Phil's represented, the litigations, it's our fight. But he's taken the force. And if we can, any of us who can, even a small amount, where do we donate to help in that litigatory battle, Phil?
Well, thank you for that. We do have our website still up, the Lyman for Utah. We're still taking donations there. We do have a C4 that we call the Lyman Group for some of the legal stuff. If people want to be able to donate for the legal battle without going through a campaign, they can do that. And we'll launch a little bit more into that as things go. I will say this too, and I told this to my campaign. I am not good at raising money. never think about it, but I said, we're not asking for people's money, we're asking for people's hearts and minds. And once they recognize that you're fighting a good fight, then we get people saying, where can I send some money? How can I help? What can I do? And I love that about our campaign. And I still have people, I've turned off the monthly contributors on my campaign about 4 times because they probably just forgot. And they'll call up and say, hey, I want to keep donating on a monthly basis. And some of them are sizable donations because they know that we're fighting the fight. They know that we're throwing in all of our resources ourselves to
It's our fight. Their fight is
yeah, it's
for
the
us all.
fight. It's such a good fight. It's great. Wayne.
Oh, Phil, I can't resist this.
It's dangerous.
I created a report on how to blow the whistle on corruption, and so I sent it out to all the elections officials and county clerks, all right? And then I track who opens and how many times they open specifically. McKinsey opened that report 127 times.
What?
So he did it right, okay? He did it for me.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, thanks for everything you do, Wayne. Thanks for everything you do. Another investigator just digs in and gets lots of information.
Hey, Phil.
Yes.
Can I make a plug for McKinsey?
Yeah.
So you touched on this, I heard you, one of the things that's very insidious about McKinsey is that first of all, he's just a corrupt county clerk, but what's more insidious, he has a lot of influence up in the legislature. Yep. And I think one day I sent you this nasty email saying, what the hell's going on? How can this happen? And so, but what happens is, for example, there's, I'm not gonna try to remember the number, but there's a legislation there, I think it's 164, that implements 5 of the 7 recommendations that came out of an audit, out of the legislative auditor, and everybody's pushing it. And then in one of the hearings, I find out, in fact, from my county chair, Chris Knoll, called me, and we were working on this together. And what happens is, McKinsey is crafting legislation. He's with the attorneys that are drafting language, and then they put in a substitute bill that you cannot grandma. The records I got today, if this law passes next year, they're gonna be sealed records. You can't, they're not gonna be public records. So we got a hold of Cutler, and that's what Noel helped me with, to get a hold of Cutler and said, that's not transparency, you're going backwards, and that's where we confirmed, well, he said McKinsey's the one that told him, and said that there was just a big burden to have to give people that. So anyways, you gotta get rid of McKinsey, because for the life of me, I don't know why he has credibility up there other than, you know, he's the sidekick of the lieutenant governor, but it's just very dangerous to have him there. And because it's a circular thing, that you can't, he's over there fixing laws to make sure we hide things, and so you keep losing ground. It's horrible.
Okay.
I don't know anybody that might know, but we need somebody to run. So think hard.
For county clerk.
Yeah, we've got a plan.
I have something to say about
Yes.
Brian McKenzie's.
Yes.
During the general election, I went into.
Oh.
From the diaphragm, chica.
Okay, so, during the general election, I went into the county building, the Davis County, City County building, or whatever it's called, yeah. And, I went in there to view, went into the viewing room, the viewing area where you can watch the process. And, I was in there for like maybe 5 or 10 minutes. Then all of a sudden, Brian McKenzie walks up to me, starts asking me questions, asked me why I was there watching. I told him, you know, that I don't think that our election process is, well, I told him, I said, there's a lot of corruption. And I said, I just want to see and make sure everything's going the way it should. And he said, well, we're very transparent.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and at first, he wasn't so bad when he was asking me questions before I told him that I don't trust our elections. It was when I told him I don't trust our elections, he kicked me out. He asked me to leave.
It hit a sore
Yeah.
spot.
Well, and it just shows
that, if you believe that they're involved in any corruption, which they are.
What recourse does she have if he kicks her out?
You don't hide things unless there's something to hide.
Yeah, exactly. Why would you kick someone out for wanting to make sure there is transparency?
Yeah.
It's like if you're
It's so telling.
transparent, why are you?
The reaction is the tell on all of these things.
Exactly, and I wanted to say, well, if you're, if you're trying to be transparent with the elections, then why are you making me leave?
Yeah, yeah. We can't put up with that.
That's how transparent they are.
Yeah.
I was just requesting like a basic overview and update on the whole case that you got going on with signatures and all, and how that got fed up to the Supreme Court.
So the question was the Supreme Court, so it went to the Supreme Court. They had 595 cases that they heard that morning that they reviewed on the conference, and they picked like 7 or 8 of them. So it's not a surprise that they did pick it up. We had one request for reconsideration, which we sent that in, and hopefully that one will be coming back. But yeah, that's the Supreme Court case. We've got about 3 other cases that are at some form or another in district court right now. And yeah, signatures and voting election return records, a few other things like that.
When do you think that you hear like back?
It'll be soon. I thought it would happen last week. I don't know if it'll happen this week, and I don't know where the Supreme Court is at in their load of things that are going on. But they move pretty quickly. Jen?
I just had a quick comment about the signatures. So we've had two separate offices do an audit on all of those signatures, and they couldn't even come to the same conclusion. We have people that are hired from out of state to collect signatures. I don't think those signature gatherers are trained very well, because they told some of my neighbors that they had to sign because they were registered Republicans. So this is a system that is absolutely not reliable, and it takes someone with guts to say and to make it go away.
Thank you.
Yeah, it just created another corrupt business.
Well, I do want to wrap up, and I'm going to. Liberty Shepherd is a new media company that Pastor Bickle is putting together. It's not a company. Media.
Because I don't have the money, so we're just putting out the information.
Do you care if I turn the mic back over to you? Do you want to say something about it, or you want to just play it?
This is just an example.
Okay, so.
I'm excited to share with you a quote from our current sitting lieutenant governor here in Utah concerning the importance of a caucus system. She said, we need professionals up on the Hill. We need business leaders. We need lawyers. We also need moms. We also need regular people. We all deserve to be represented. And you take away this grassroots process, this convention process, this one-on-one process, and you strip a whole group of people of their ability to compete in this arena. We've got to preserve this wonderful, unique system that we have, because it does empower regular people. And I think that there are some who hate that. They don't want regular people to be empowered, and that's a crying shame. Quote from Lieutenant Governor Diego Henderson.
So that's just a URL code. We're really having a tough time getting this launched. The whole idea is I don't have enough money to influence anyone. So we're just trying to put out little short videos that have the truth, because I believe the truth will make you free. So if you would help us, if you could do what you do with the URL code and help share those videos, that'd be great.
Thanks, Pastor. I will go ahead and wrap up too, just to say thank you again. And there is a scripture that comes to my mind, and it's from the Book of Mormon, Nephi. And he says, and I saw and bear record that the great and spacious building was the pride of the world, and it fell, and great was the fall thereof. And we're about to see that, but the thing that stuck out to me was that the privilege to see and bear record. And that's the privilege we all have. Whether we win or lose these fights, we are bearing records of really, really important events that are taking place right now. And I am so deeply humbled and grateful for being invited to speak to a group like this. So thank you all very much.
I didn't mean to take that away from you. Thank you, we love you. All right, really quick before you leave, I'm going to tell you a couple of things. Peter, come up here. The Brunson brother case. Okay, let's see.
Give him the link.
Peter, you talk about it.
Back in November, a baby was born. It was a new newsletter. A newsletter that will tell the truth about politics, at least in Davis County. Maybe every county will develop one. We've been publishing a monthly newsletter, and I want to tell you the name of it. It harkens back to the Revolutionary War when we had committees of correspondence. Now we have the Davis Correspondence newsletter. We would hope that those who have news about what's going on in our especially local politics, but even statewide would be good, write a little article. We only want the articles to be 200 to 500 words. It's not that much, but tell the story of what's going on that you know to be factual. If you have evidence and you have knowledge of what happened, let's tell it. There is no conservative media outlet out there. There is none. We can be it, but our baby right now is only about 4 months old. So let's see if we can build it. You build it by sending an email, get on our correspondence list, and we'll send you the email for free every month. It's called Davis Correspondence at Outlook.com. So if you'd like to get that email, send it to that address and we'll put you on the list. If you'd like to send an article to that newsletter, I'll decide whether we publish it, but we probably will, knowing you. And so let us have those. We generally publish around the 12th of the month. So get your articles to me by the 5th or so, or the 6th, and we'll have a chance to put it out there. Yes?
So Davis Correspondence, all one word?
All one word, Davis Correspondence. And that's not news correspondence like reporters. It's like the Revolutionary War committees of correspondence.
And it was at what?
At Outlook.com.
Thank you.
You're saying it's TS.
No, it's not with TS. It is CE at the end.
Okay, Peter is awesome. All right.
Thank you, Peter.
The Brunson brothers, it's called the Quo. The what? Quo Warranto. But you can find it at enoughisenough.me. Enoughisenough.me. And you can send your own letter to the Utah Supreme Court asking for them to hear the case and take some action. Okay, reminder, there are books right there if anybody wants to see the books.
I have a pet can for donations if you want to.
We are accepting donations because we need to be able to send out texts and emails and we need to also support candidates who are running, and that's our purpose. Lastly, you wanted to say something?
Yeah.
Tina, you're
To
saying
write letters to the
Davis
Supreme
County
Court.
Conservatives, that's the group we're donating to?
Yes, that we're accepting donations back there. There were a couple of other things, Stacy.
Michael's videos, where do we find those?
You can find Michael Clare's videos on YouTube. Michael Clare.
How do you spell Claire?
C-L-A-R-A.
I'll link them on our Facebook page.
Okay, you can join us on Facebook, Davis County Conservatives, and you can get this information. Wayne, how do we get your newsletter?
It's kind of difficult if you haven't shortened the URL.
Can you link it?
But you can get on my new website at Justice, Justice, the number 4, eternity, ETERNITY.faith. And that'll get you right to my new website.
Okay, they're awesome. You'll love them. They're hilarious also. Justice for Eternity.
Dot faith.
Justice with the number 4.
Yes.
Eternity.faith. All right, speaking of faith, the scripture that comes to my mind, because, you know, it doesn't matter how much Trump does, it doesn't matter if Phil Lyman became governor and he cleaned things up, none of this matters unless what 2 Chronicles 7:14 says, if my people which are called by my name shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and will forgive their sins and heal their land. We absolutely need that blessing in our lives, and so I would implore you all to do so, and please support us. Please come to our events and bring your friends, because we need to let people know what's happening. And our next event, the second Thursday, 6:30 p.m., we have Gabrielle Phuket.
Oh, yes.
She escaped
Amazing.
from Cuba, so she's going to tell about her escape from communism. She's an awesome speaker. So that's the second Thursday of March. Brian?
Next Wednesday, John Crofts has an event on the 5th that we should all go support.
Thank you.
County Commissioner,
It's
our
in the
only good county
Farmington
commissioner.
Library.
Farmington Library,
131 South Main at 6 p.m.
6 p.m. All right, everybody, thank you for coming. You're wonderful.
After all that. I'm gonna turn it off for you.